Hi everyone, my name is Professor Annie Krieger and I'm going to be working with you for the Sociology of Social Problems here at Southern New Hampshire University for this session. I want to welcome you to an amazing class. This is fascinating just in terms of the content that we cover, but also the skills that you're going to learn that you can take forward into future program classes and also into graduate school. This is one of my favorite classes to teach. I've been teaching here for several years now as an instructor in this program, and social problems I've taught for a couple other colleges as well is a fascinating class to kind of get your mind thinking about how things are truly working. I don't know if you've taken introduction to sociology prior to taking this class. It is a prerequisite, yeah, so you have taken it. So good. That means just you're well versed in the theoretical standpoint in the three main functions. Theoretical perspectives: structural functionalism, symbolic interactionism, and conflict theory. However, when we really look into those and broaden our perspective and start to investigate, there's so many more perspectives, theoretical frameworks that we can use to understand sociological concepts and dynamics that you're really going to be able to explore here in this class. So you can look at feminist theory, student development theory. There's pretty much a theory for everything. So it'll be an interesting way to really expand how we look at things. But we root ourselves in those three basic frameworks and kind of go from there. So in this class, you are going to explore a social topic. Well, we're going to really talk about a lot of social issues and social problems, but you yourself get to choose one that you're going to become an expert in. So what I want you to do for this first module is, I want you to look at the entire class, and I want you to read about the entire project and all the things that are required over the next 8 weeks that you're going to have to do. And then from there, I want you to decide on what social problem you're going to look at. So what exactly do you find to be some problem that is plaguing the social system? Remember that sociology and psychology are very different from one another in that psychology bases its framework in terms of biology is destiny, whereas a sociologist would argue that culture is destiny. And so when we look at these sociological problems, for instance, if we chose credit card debt, we wouldn't look at it in terms of the individual as choosing to spend poorly. Rather, we are looking at a system that frames it and allows it and produces a forum to where the individual is required to rely on credit as a way of survival. So I just say this because a lot of times when we look at some of these social problems, we really limit ourselves to thinking that it's the individual's fault. And when we look at it from a sociological perspective, we really need to open up our minds to looking at a larger social system. This is not to take personal responsibility away from the individual at all, but rather looking to see if we really do have a choice. Another example is education. And when we look at education among the different ethnic and racial groupings or groups, we find that overwhelmingly that African American students have a fairly poor, if not majorly poor, educational starting point. Let's just say that. And so what does this do for them in terms of their progression throughout a social system? Okay, does everyone have the same starting line? No. And this doesn't just have to do with race. You can watch Children of the Mountains and look at the students in Appalachia and in Kentucky and West Virginia and know that it's plaguing poor white Caucasian students as well. So there's a class issue in terms of education. But when we look at education, we postulate that all students start off at the same starting line. Is that really a true statement? No. Is there a benefit to going to Southern New Hampshire as opposed to Harvard? Is there a benefit to going to Southern New Hampshire as opposed to a community college? What does it mean to go to an online university? I mean, these are all just questions if you were looking at education as your social problem. or something that you wanted to investigate. Another one would be poverty, global poverty. And so, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and you get to choose what you want to investigate. So what you can do in terms of limiting or narrowing down your topics is to choose a variable. You could go from there. You could say, you want to look at gender, race, age, geographic location, all of the variables that you learned about in introductory sociology. You could talk about just a system problem, a systematic problem that you find to be interesting. So if you think poverty is it, or the medicalization of society, I mean, the sky is the limit here. So what I'm getting at is I want you to read forward to see what the overall project is going to look like and what you're going to want to investigate for the next 8 weeks. And by the end of week 1, I want you to submit to me just an idea of what it is that you're going to be talking about. And I want you to tell me not just, oh, hey, Professor Krieger, I'm going to be looking at poverty, and that be all that you send me. I want to know, why do you think poverty is a problem? I want you to explain it to me and make a compelling argument that that I, as a human being who assuming that I'm not plagued by anything that is problematic, I want you to make the argument why I would care, why any human being in the United States or beyond should care about this thing and consider it a social issue. So I want you to identify the problem that you're going to be looking at. Maybe look at some variables, whether it's age, geographic location. So if you're doing poverty, are you going to look at global poverty? If you're looking at the lack of food resources or food deserts in urban America, or perhaps you're going to look at gender images and the impact that they have on adolescent teenagers. I mean, that's kind of narrowing down a topic. You're talking about, you're narrowing it down to specific variables. So that's what I'm looking for. At this point, I don't really want or need for you to do some research. However, I think you should begin to do that. And as you begin to do your research, you're going to add it to your annotated bibliography, which I will post an example of that so that you have that. But that is going to be used as a roadmap, so that as you start to put everything together in your final product, you can actually keep track of where you're getting the information from. So anytime you find a reasonable, acceptable resource that you're going to use, you want to put the citation in there, and then a little bit of a blurb. You can do bullet points or paragraphs. I've seen it in both ways. However you learn best, then you choose which format you want to use. So that's your annotated bibliography. But in terms of what you're going to do for week 1, I would like a theoretical perspective. So, why do you think that this is a problem? And maybe you're going to use the feminist perspective. So maybe you choose gender images in the media. Well, if you're using gender, you're probably going to look at the feminist theory of something. So after reading chapter 1 in the book, you're going to get a little bit more into some of the theories that are out there, and then I want you to include one of those in your submission for week 1. So you're going to choose a social problem, kind of explain, make a compelling argument why it is a social problem, and include a theory behind it, a conceptual framework, we call it, a conceptual or theoretical framework of why this is important, why it connects back to sociology or back to society as an issue or as a concern. The other thing that you're going to do this week is you're going to post an introduction to the icebreakers. I would love for you to add a picture, but that's up to you if you want to do. Welcome your classmates, get to know them, and then you also have to post for week 1. It's just basically defining the different theoretical perspectives, the ones that I had mentioned earlier. And what you want to, you can also choose one problem and dissect it using all 3 perspectives. So, how would you look at education, for example, through all 3 perspectives? So you're taking one problem and dissecting it 3 ways. And the reason why is every single problem that we have, or every different approach, every single problem has various approaches into how we analyze it. So you can look at education from a conflict theorist perspective and find a totally different explanation for it if you look at it from a structural functionalist perspective. So for example, I look at from the conflict theorist perspective and I say, well, education is a way of reproducing classist beliefs. I mean, you go to school, you learn what it is like to be a member of your particular social class, and that is how we recreate those social norms and expectations. And yet I would look at it from a functionalist perspective and say, well, this is a way that we help we help the family teach behavior and reinforce behaviors that is very important in keeping the equilibrium for society. It's not necessarily doing a specific class, but rather we're reinforcing as an educational system, we're reinforcing what the family is teaching. And then from a symbolic interactionist perspective, what does it mean to go to public school? What does it mean to go to that particular public school? What does it mean to, whatever we choose as our symbol of how we explain that. So that's just one example of how you take one situation and you dissect it 3 different ways. Okay, so you're going to do that for your discussion board. But this is basically a pretty easy week, but it's a week of exploration. Go in, get to know everything, read through the guidelines and the rubrics of every single assignment. I want you to do that before you write anything. Excuse me. But a few really important things to know about me is, one, I like evidence. I know a lot of times I'll say I'm really big on APA formatting. Yes, I am. But what I mean by that is that I want you to connect the evidence. I want you to present the research that you find in everything. Okay, these are not original thoughts that we're having. So this week when you do your weekly discussion, where are you finding all the information out about these 3 perspectives? Well, you're finding it from the book, so that needs to be cited. I want to know what the research is saying, and I do not want first person, not unless it prompts you to say, connect this to your life, and in which case you need to provide a scholarly framework and beginning, and then, connect your first person experience. But at the college level, while I think it's very important to link what we're learning in the classroom out into what we're doing in real life, social problems is a bit different. We need to find the research, because where I find something to be a social problem, you may not. And the only way for me to prove to you that it's something worth considering is for me to bring forth evidence and say, look, statistically this is an issue. Statistically this is plaguing our system. Or to make this compelling argument, to make you look at my situation and my social problem and my idea and say, wow, there's some credit to what she's saying. Look at all of the research that has been done, the statistics, the policies, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, I am looking for a lot of evidence. As long as you're trying with the APA format, I'm fine with it. But that's another skill that you're going to hone in on and teach yourself as we go through this process. There's a lot of resources in the research writing tab on the left-hand menu of our class, but I'll also put out some other resources that you can look into so that you can really make the best of it. But it is something that deserves your time and attention, so you do need to teach yourself APA formatting, and just know that you're continue to work on it. I mean, you're not going to be an expert at it at the end of the semester, probably not at the end of next semester, but just continue to work on it and grow with that. What else? Well, a little bit about me. I have my Master's of Arts in Applied Sociology. I've been teaching here at Southern New Hampshire for a few years now. God, I don't know if it's been 4 or 5. I also teach at Florida State College at Jacksonville, the Community College of Baltimore County, St. Leo University, and University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And I teach in the Women's Studies department and in the Sociology department. And my focus is, well, I'm also taking my doctoral program, which I just submitted my last paper a couple weeks ago, so I'm considered ABD, which means all I have to do is my dissertation. I have a couple comp exams to do, but my focus is on looking at non-traditional female students and the barriers that they encounter that would contribute to them not successfully completing their program. So I look at gender in just about everything. I also look at race, geographic location. I mean, all of these variables mean quite a bit to me. So on a professional level, that's a little bit about me. As personally, I am a mother of 4. I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old, 2 boys, 2 girls. And so if you call my phone, and you'll read all of this in my instructor bio. If you call my phone, which I am very big on, I want you to know that you can reach out to me at any way possible. If you need to text me or call me, that's perfectly fine. But maybe there would be an instance where you call me and a child answers. Sometimes they have my phone and I don't even know it. So if that happens, try to ask for me, but you know, if you get no response and you just hear a bunch of noise, just hang up and try back again. Hopefully by then I'll have possession of my phone. This semester I'm also doing a Twitter feed, and I would love for you to join me on Twitter. You can find me at at Professor Profa Krieger, and that's where I will be. I will put this all in the discussion board. Actually, I think it's already there. Please be wary, or aware, I'm sorry, not weary. Please be aware of the late policy that the institution, the university has set forth. We're all having to abide by this, so it's very important that you, you know, have a little bit of knowledge of what it is. I will say this, though. If you are having an issue, just reach out to me and we will come up with an extension, or you know, something that will allow you to complete something without being penalized. Life happens. I'm very familiar with that, and so as students who are taking courses online, we are a special breed of people. And we take classes online because we have no time and we're trying to do all of these things, multiple roles, everything, all at one time. And so I understand, if you're anything like me, that the bottom always is it's like 1 inch from falling out at any point in time. If you have children, you're going to deal with illness. Listen, you got a lot on your plate. If you need some extra time, call me beforehand, and then we can come up with a plan that bypasses that university policy. But if I get something late and I've never spoken to you or you've never reached out, then the policy stands and I have to follow it to a T. So all you have to do is reach out to me, and that's it, and we will deal with it from there. Anyway, I look forward to a wonderful semester with you. I love the topic of social problems. Check out the weekly announcements. I'm going to send them out every Sunday night starting next week, and then throughout the week I'll send you out some reminder posts and things like that. But I look forward to working with each and every one of you. I'm really excited to see what kind of social problems you come up with. And I will see you all on the discussion board. Thank you so much for taking the time, and here's to a wonderful semester.